Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Political Brown Kid here. And I told you I was going to do a post talking about numbers, and here it is. The initial post that I did was just kind of setting the tone for talking about your uniqueness and your unique experience. Well, this kind of piggybacks off that because, again, like I said, this podcast or this platform is going to build on certain things that you need to know foundationally. So when you start going out here into the world and start running off at the mouth about why certain things are or are not happening for you, you need to kind of know your numbers. Now, I know you heard some rapper, I don't even want to mention their name because that's another story. We'll talk about them, but they always talk about numbers don't lie. Numbers lie. The numbers I'm going to give to you aren't going to lie because I'm going to give it to you with some context. But the reason why I say numbers lie is because a lot of times people play games with numbers. People either want to talk in terms of percentages or people want to talk in terms of total quantitative count. And so they use those numbers to their benefit or detriment in order to prove a point or to dispel another point. Prime example, just to kind of give it to you real quick, they'll say in order to make black people look bad, they'll say, well, there's more black people on welfare than whites. You know, they use black people as the poster child for welfare. And they'll say per capita or per population size, there are more black people on welfare than whites. And what they're basically saying is that, you know, based upon the size of the group, we know that black people are in numbers, total numbers, are far smaller than whites. But as far as percentage wise, within that group, there are a high number of them on welfare. Although there are more people as far as total count of whites on welfare than blacks. So they'll play a percentage game when it comes to that. But then when they want to start talking absolute numbers, then they want to go to a count. They want to go to a number count. So you can't play games. Either you're going to talk about numbers from a percentage standpoint or you're going to talk about numbers from a count standpoint. And that's the reason why I say numbers lie, because numbers can be very deceptive. But this thread that I'm kind of want to talk about here is just knowing your numbers from a black perspective on why certain things are happening to the black community. Some of these numbers are relatively older because these, number one, the census, matter of fact, they're just completing the census. This post that I'm doing right now is as of June 2020. And we all know that the census came out, around the spring of 2020. I don't know if you guys participated or not. I'm not going to either say participate or not participate. That is your personal perspective or your personal opinion to do so. But the new census and new census numbers will possibly be coming out soon, so we'll get a better view of some newer numbers. But these numbers are going to be a little bit older, and some of these numbers I pulled from various sources. So let's look at the numbers in North America. We're just talking about the United States of America right now. You're looking at, as far as the last census count of 2010, and I'm just comparing whites, Asians, and blacks. And the reason why some of you Hispanics may say, well, what about Hispanics? Hispanic is not a race. There's no such thing as a race of Hispanics. There's never has been, there never will be a race of Hispanics. So I'm not trying to be mean or harmful here, but I know that people identify as Hispanics, but to be honest with you, the Hispanic people are descendants of, for the most part, they're kind of like a mixture, a hodgepodge. They're really more so a descendant of, depending upon where you came from, indigenous Americans. And then you had that whole intermingling when you had the racial the racial conflict between blacks and whites brought in, and you know, the blacks, you know, as slaves and newly freed individuals were within the Latin America and Caribbean, but particularly we're talking about Latin America. They brought in the white Portuguese, or they brought in Europeans to come in and breed out the blacks. Again, I'm not making this stuff up. You can go and look up Henry Louis Gates. I think he did a special on Brazil, and it was called like a racial paradise. He did a whole segment on Black and Latin America, and they had this thing where they called it the whitening, where they wanted to whiten out or get rid of the Black genes down there. Whole different conversation, and I'm definitely going to have a conversation on race mixing and that whole current day 2K X whitening that is currently going on, which Blacks are actively and willingly participating in, by the way, which is pretty sad. But we'll talk about that. But the reason why we're not going to talk about Hispanics is because, like I said, Hispanics are either going to be white Hispanics or Black Hispanics. And that's just a fact. You're looking at people from Puerto Rico, more than less likely they are Black. They don't want to be classified as Black. You're looking at the Dominican Republic. Those people are Black. They don't want to be classified as Black. They denounce it, but they're Black. And then you're looking at people from like Mexico, I think Ecuador and so forth. Those people are more so white. But we'll talk about, that's a whole different discussion. Right now, I'm just going to focus on Asians, whites, and Blacks. And let's look at the population size in America. This was as of the last 2010 count. So you had 14 million or 14.5 million Asians in America. They made up 4.7% of the American population. When you're looking at whites, there were 197 million whites. 64% of the country's white. I do believe now it's up to like 70-something% of this country is white. And then you're looking at Blacks, who are 38 million, or roughly 12% of the population. So when you're looking at these numbers, white people made up, from these 2010 census numbers, whites made up 64% of the population. They have roughly a great deal of more numbers of Black times numbers than Blacks. And you're looking at Blacks. Blacks basically have outnumbered the Asians by 3 times. So there's 3 times more Blacks in America than whites, than Asians. And the whites, they're just, oh my God, they're like 60-something%. So they're just way ahead of everyone else. So let's look at the household income. Now, these household income numbers I got from 2018. So again, they're not going to match up with the 2010 numbers. So I'm trying to provide you context so we don't say numbers don't lie, because numbers will lie, because I can't give you 2010 population numbers and 2018 median household income numbers without at least giving you that information. So to let you know that some of this information is not totally going to marry up, because I could not get the information that married up. But let's just look at this. When we're talking, so these are approximations that I'm talking in. When you're looking at the Asian median household, you're talking about $87,000 a year. That's the median household income for Asians. They are not even 5% of the population, and they make $87,000 a year. They're at the top. They're the smallest population. They're at the top. Well, in a way that works to their benefit, being the smallest population, because when you're the smallest population, it's less room to have a bunch of degenerates and screw ups within that population, right? I mean, hopefully. Because God knows we know that all races have degenerates and screw ups. All races are not immune to degenerates and screw ups. But when you're that small, hopefully that you got mostly the best of the best in there. And obviously Asians do if they're doing $87,000 a year. That's very good in America, according to these 2018 numbers. You look at whites make about $70,000 a year. So they make up the predominant population. They make $70,000 a year. That is pretty good. Now, again, these numbers, these are only median household income numbers, the median. We're not talking average, we're talking the median. So make sure that you understand that, because somebody from New York, and even being in Washington, D.C., which I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, you may look at $70,000 and be like, that's not a lot of money. You have to understand these numbers are relative, because also included in these numbers are people down south, Talking North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and you're talking about people out west, people Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, and so forth, where the salaries probably aren't going to be as high as what you say a New York City or Boston or Washington, D.C. or a San Francisco, California. So please take that into consideration as you're looking at these numbers. So actually, when you're looking at the median $70,000, then that means they have a whole bunch of other people that's probably making $100,000, $200,000, and $300,000 above them. And then they've got some people below, but the median is at $70,000. Now let's look at blacks, who make up 12% of the population, 3 times more than Asians, but roughly about 5 times less than, really almost about 6 times less than whites, about 6 times less than whites. They make up $41,000 a year, median household income. That's not bad. It's not bad, but you're roughly swimming at the bottom. And trust me, if I put in the Latino numbers, you're definitely at the bottom. So you make the least amount of money in the United States. And you think about that number relative to what whites are doing. You pretty much make half of what whites make. You definitely make half of what Asians make on an annual basis. Now, and then also too, what I'm trying to say, keep in mind, we're talking population count. You are roughly 12% of the population. Whites are 60% of the population. And remember the conflict that you have with whites and blacks. You have those conflicts between white and black throughout the diaspora. You can go to most continents on planet Earth, the only planet that we currently occupy, and there's going to always be conflict between white and black. There's not really conflict between white and Asians. There's not really conflict between white and Latino. There's some, but it's not systemic between those groups. It's systemic between you and whites. There's a conflict, and we've been dealing with these conflicts for every year since white people and black people have gotten together and co-located every year. And to this day, people are still surprised that racial conflict goes on, but it does. And I don't know why you're surprised. But just keep in mind, white people outnumber you 6 times. We're going to come to that in a minute. But I want to give you a global perspective. So now let's look at the numbers for South Africa, because one can look at these financial numbers and even these population numbers and be like, well, of course, whites are going to outnumber us by 6 times in America, and they're going to make twice as much as we do. This is their country. When I say this is their country by quote unquote manifest destiny through war and through the trials and tribulations that they took and the force that they used to take this country from the indigenous Americans. It's their country. So I'm using it from that perspective of when I say this is their country. So yeah, we can say, okay, yeah, this is their country. They should make all of the money and they should outnumber us 5-6 to 1. I'm with you on that one. But let's look at South Africa. And we can really dive deep into the African continent, period. But trust me, these numbers for South Africa is probably one of the more richest countries outside of Nigeria. Probably one of the countries that we can use to gauge this because they have a decent sized population of whites. So let's look. Whites make up 8% of the population. 8. So the numbers are basically flipped between America and South Africa. They make up 8% of the population. Blacks make up 80% of the population. 80. So you outnumber them 10 times over in South Africa. But the blacks in Africa only make, and I'm talking rand. This is in rand, the currency over in South Africa, $60,613. Now those numbers was as of 2011. So I'm giving you context here. Those numbers was as of 2011. I think that is important. The 2020 dollar equivalent of 60,613 rand is $3,536. So they make $3,000 a year, $3,500 a year. You look at the Asians. I couldn't get the Asian size population over in Africa. Couldn't find that out. I do apologize for that, but I don't have it. They make 251,541 rand in Africa. In your home country, where you are 80% of the population, you have Asians there, who I'm pretty sure are smaller in number. Well, Africa and China do have a relationship, so I don't know what the population size is, but I'm assuming that they would be less than, well, maybe not. If blacks, there's 88%, so there's probably 12%, we can say, maybe. But nonetheless, so let's just assume that they're the final 12%. They make, in dollar equivalent, $14,673 in 2020 conversions. Now, mind you, these 2011 numbers, I haven't adjusted for 2020. Maybe blacks have come up a little bit more, maybe not. I'm pretty sure that the ratio has stayed the same, though. Now let's look at whites. The 8% population in South Africa, the minority, they make 365,134 rand, which is equivalent to $21,299. That's the annual household income over in South Africa for whites. So in America, whites make not really twice as much. You can't really say twice as much. They make almost twice as much as you do. Maybe 1.8, 1.6% more than you do. Asians definitely make two times as what you make. In Africa, you make the least. It's your country, and you make the least amount of money. Well, it's our country, our native country. You make the least amount of money. We make $3,000. Asians, which are the next group, make $14,000. So they make nearly five times as much money as blacks. And whites make $21,299. They make almost 7 times as much money as you do. Almost 7 times. Because blacks make 35, 36. They make 21,299. So they almost make 7 times more than blacks in their own country. And when you start talking about the depression, when you talk about the colonization, and we haven't even gotten into the psychological aspect of colonization, we definitely see the financial impact. Whites own everything. They're 8% of the population. They own the most land. They own the corporations. You're just workers. That's all we are. No matter where you go in this world, talking about America, you're talking about Africa, your own home, the motherland, Africa. You're just a worker. They own everything. And Asians obviously are owning stuff too. Or at least they're in top management, looking at their numbers. And when you start looking at European numbers are probably going to line up with American numbers. That's why I didn't do research on them. I think you all know that it's a European country. It's wealthy. Russia, it's a Caucasian country. And there's wealth in Russia. There's poverty in Russia too. There's a lot of damn poverty in Russia, but there's wealth there too. And so you start looking at these numbers. And then you have to start saying, well, blacks are impoverished in America. They're impoverished in their own damn country of Africa. And all of the islands that we occupy now, Jamaica, Bahamas, Dominican Republic, Haiti, not islands, but it's part of the South America. Everywhere where we're sprinkled, where we were emancipated and given freedom, and now we are the dominant race there. We're not really empowered financially. And so you have to, the reason why I'm giving you this information is you have to look at this. The financial impact and the judicial impacts of these things are very, very important. Financially, and this is where I'm going with this. Look, I grew up, like I said, in the 70s. I'm an 80s baby. I was born in the 70s, but I really grew up and had my experiences in the 80s. I grew up a big New Edition fan. I wasn't Jackson 5 wasn't my era. New Edition was my era. So I'm just throwing this out there as an example. When New Edition comes out, New Edition sells maybe 1 million records because it's only 14 million blacks in this country. 37 million blacks. And back in the 80s, it's probably less than that. It's probably like around 12 million. But then you got to figure out who's buying records. You dwindle that down and you start dwindling down the numbers of who's fitting this demographic. New Edition has a less of a group to market, a target audience. Their target audience is small. They're young black guys. So their target audience is probably a lot of young black girls who like or are into and can relate to or fantasize about young black boys. Because they were young teenagers at the time when they came out. They were like the Jackson 5 of the 80s. So you're looking at a bunch of 5 black kids from Boston, make good music. Candy Girl, that was my favorite album in the 80s. So you're looking at 5 young black kids. And the only people that's going to buy that record is going to be young black girls who think that these guys look good or who are into these guys and who like their music. And who are following them. And then also other young black guys or young black girls. I don't know what I said, but young black girls who are into these young black guys are going to buy this music. And then black guys such as myself who think the music's nice and like the group and aren't ashamed to say, hey, I would like New Edition. Right. So their audience, they're selling maybe 500,000 records because, again, the population size. When New Kids on the Block comes out, they've got a bigger target audience. They got, let's just say this 197 million. Let's just say these numbers were in the 80s. They've got 197 million people to target. And then out of that, you probably you probably do 10% of this. They got 19 million people. If you just say 10% of 196 million, let's just say that 10% of young white female girls who love the way these little New Kids on the Block guys look, and they're into these guys. Mind you, both of these artists, New Edition and New Kids on the Block, are both from Boston. They're both from similar sections of Boston. They both had the same producer, Maurice Starr. Both got both groups their start on his record label. One group, the black group, goes on to sell 1 million records, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. That's where they top out at. Other group goes on to sell 10 million, 15 million, 20 million. I don't know how many records they were selling, but they're selling buku records, right? They're selling buku records because their audience is bigger, because they have bigger numbers. And we're just talking about America. This is just America. And not only that, the Americans, the whites, who are their target audience, have the money to buy their records. Their households are enfranchised. Their households are empowered financially to support these guys. So what happens? These guys come up. And when they come up, they can bring on other people. And then the record companies say, hey, this is what sells. White kids sell. Black kids don't really sell that well. We don't need to put that much money into these black kids. Their target audience isn't that big. And it's a true statement. If these numbers were to hold up, this 37 million, if you dwindle that down to say 10% of the 37 million is 3.7 million, that's 3.7 million black girls that are like in the New Edition. That's probably their biggest audience. And then probably they're only going to sell half of that. And then you have to say, well, which one of these people had out of this 3.7 million, how many of them have money to go buy the record? And then New Kids on the Block can go overseas. They have another continent called Europe that is full of Europeans that probably are into their music, their style, their culture. Now, this is not racist. It is a prejudice. Let's not get it twisted. But look, there are things called prejudices and biases. They can be malicious and they can be not malicious. It is perfectly not malicious. I'm not holding anything against these young white girls who said, I like New Kids on the Block. I'm not feeling New Edition. That's a natural bias. You should gravitate towards people that look like you. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just giving you numbers to show you that, hey, look, if Africa had not been colonized and destroyed the way that it was, and let's just say that the Africans, those numbers were flipped around and the Africans had monetary control over their country, New Edition would have probably been selling buku records, and they probably may have gone gold or like sold one times platinum, 2 times platinum, 3 times platinum in the United States. But then overseas in Africa, they could have been killing it. But again, you don't have the financial power. And that's the same as you look with any business in America that's going to cater to the Black experience. When you start looking at BET, which is Black Entertainment Television, you start looking at TV and Black Entertainment Television, and Black Entertainment Television because Bob Johnson sold out and he sold the station to some white people. And because he saw $1 billion, they flashed $1 billion in his face and he sold out. And maybe he just got tired of being in the television business, but he got out. So you can't even really call BET a Black station. It's owned by Viacom, I do believe. I hope I have my facts right on that. But that's what it's owned by. But you look at TV1. TV1 is owned by, I don't want to get her name wrong because that's my girl. She owns all the radio stations here in Washington, D.C. I do apologize for having a brain leakage at this point in time because I can't give her a shout out, but TV1 is a truly owned Black Black television station as far as I know. And it's a Black media station because they do own radio in this area as well. But you look at those who are catering and doing Black shows and Black movies, Black made for TV movie, Black programming, I guarantee you she's not, those actors on her station aren't killing it because they're not getting the marketing dollars, and their numbers as far as their ratings are not going to be anywhere as high as being on a white station and having white people sprinkled in. So that's why I say these are financial impacts, is that you can't make moves in America and you can't make moves in South Africa because your own people in the motherland can't afford it. They're the brokest people on planet Earth, damn near, I bet. This is sad. I mean, it's really sad. So you really have no outlet. So that's why you always see Black people selling out, trying to go mainstream and doing pop music and trying to do stuff and cater to other cultural demographics because there's no numbers there for them. Keep this in mind too. I forget the lady. White female who her name slips my mind at this point in time, but she was a baker on the television. She has some restaurants down. She has a restaurant I know in North Myrtle Beach, and I want to say she had restaurants in originally down in like the Georgia area. But white older lady, she seemed nice at the time. And she probably is a nice person. I'm not going to take anything away from her. She just had some slip ups where she used to be big on television. She used to bake the hell out of everything. Everything she baked was with sugar and butter and lard and all kind of stuff. So, she did that Southern type baking. Paula Deen, I do believe that's her name. But she did that Southern type baking. Trust me, my family's from the South. So she did that Southern type baking, and she had some slip ups where some racial comments had come back to haunt her, where she made some comments about, I guess, slavery and or, having some of her assistants dress up as slaves. Sir, I may be getting the facts wrong. I don't want to pin anything on her because, like I said, my facts, I don't really have too much facts on it, but you should look it up. I'll just leave it to say, look up in Google Paula Deen, and it may come up her controversy about what she's done in regards to racial relations and saying some things that, were offensive to blacks. And she got in real trouble. And this is why I'm trying to show you the financial impact. She got in real trouble where they kicked her off television. They took her television show away from her because TV said, we got to distance ourselves from this woman. No sooner than they took her television station away, the white people were like, no, we love Paula Deen. We're going to support Paula Deen. And you know what they did? They showed up to all of her restaurants. Her restaurant that's in Myrtle Beach, because she has one down there, I want to say at Barefoot. I go to Myrtle Beach a lot. I haven't been to the restaurant, but I've seen it. And I said, pretty interesting. I've been hesitant to go because I still have those conflicts about whether I should venture in there, due to her past conversations on race. But the white people definitely showed up for her. They said, we're going to show up for them. We're going to flood her restaurants. So where I'm going at it with it is this. When you have 196 million people that can get behind you, and not only are they white and they look like you, but they're going to support you through troubled times. They're going to come out and say, hey, we're going to support our people. We're going to support our people. This isn't right what they're doing to Paula Deen. Hey, yeah, she made some comments and they probably were messed up, but I don't care. This woman is nice. I like her. She seems like my type. I can relate to her. And they showed up in force down to her restaurants. Lines out the door. Go look it up. I'll tell you no lie. I'm not here to lie to you. So this is what I mean by the financial impact, is that when you have these type of numbers, you can support your own. Whereas you look at blacks, number one, we're psychologically damaged. We scared to support other black people. So we're not even going to do it. And if a black person gets in trouble, you got 37 million other blacks that you got to try to hope that will come to your aid. And of those 37 million, you got to look at the median income, 41,000 in America. Some of these people probably living at the poverty line. So half of them you can't count on. The other half too bougie to associate themselves with you because they scared what the white man gonna say. So they're not even gonna come out and touch you. So you go ahead and say something crazy. You say something Paula Deen level type crazy and see if black people will come out and sustain your business. Whereas you look at these whites, they got the numbers, they got the finances, and they have the psychological fearlessness to say, I'm gonna support my people regardless, good, bad, right, or wrong. It's what they do. And that's why I want to talk about the financial impact of numbers. That's what I'm giving you. The financial impact of numbers. When you see people like George Zimmerman kill a kid, murder a kid. And I'll say it, I don't care for George Zimmerman. And Lord knows if I saw him on the streets, what I'd probably do to him. But what I'm trying to say is this. He engages, he's the procuring cause of a fight escalating to a murder. He's the procuring cause, the instigator of a fight escalating to a murder. Both of the individuals are standing their ground. He's the one that brought a gunfight to a fist fight. And he gets his ass whooped, murders somebody, or he claims he got his ass whooped. Let's just say that, because we don't know what happened. All we know is some kid is dead that shouldn't be dead. And here he goes, gets in trouble with the law. And what do white people do? They start a GoFundMe page for him that raises hundreds of thousands of dollars. How does this happen? Because they have the numbers. And they have, not only do they have the numbers from a population count perspective, they have the numbers from a dollar perspective to say, and they have the psychological fearlessness to say, I'm gonna support this man. And most of them are probably doing it anonymously because you can send money to people online. But this is what I'm talking about by numbers and the financial impact of numbers. Let's look at it from a judicial impact perspective when we're talking about numbers. And we can look at this from all kind of we can look at this all the way around. Well, we're just going to look at this from a financial and judicial impact, and then we're going to leave it at that because I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk. Judicial impact. And let's just stick with the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin situation. Judicial impact. White guy, George Zimmerman, kills black guy. And by the way, let me plug this in. You have a bunch of ignorant news people, most of them associated with conservative media, talk about George Zimmerman isn't racist. He's a minority himself. Just because he has a Hispanic or Latino background, one of his parents, I do believe, was somewhere in there. He's a white Hispanic. They act like he's just because he's a minority. They act like minorities don't discriminate against minorities. Mexicans can't stand black people, and I don't know why the world doesn't understand that. Asians don't like black people that much either, unless they got money, unless they're wealthy. But I digress. Let me get back on topic. You have George Zimmerman kill a black kid, a young black kid, kills him, murders him. Now, he got off. They found him not guilty. I will plug that in there. But it was still a murder nonetheless. They claim it was self-defense, but it was a homicide. Let's put it that way. And they claim it was self-defense. That's what the ultimate verdict was. But that's not to say that all justice is good justice. And I don't think that my personal opinion, I'm just going to give you my personal opinion. It wasn't good justice. But I'm bringing his trial up to say this, to show you the judicial impact of your numbers is this. When you only represent 12% of the population and whites represent 63% of the population, anytime something happens to you in this population, do you think that you're going to get any justice in a controversial situation? That's what I'm going to say. And my thing is the likelihood of that happening is going to be no. If you look at your history throughout history books, go do your history. You look at the people who murdered Emmett Till. There wasn't really any justice brought to that. It was like years later before that justice occurred. You look at all of the lynchings that occurred in America. A lot of those people weren't even brought up on trial. And if they were found not guilty. When you look at the judicial impact of the Trayvon Martin case, when you can have a white juror, a white female juror, and females, these white females, I'm gonna do a post on them too, because these white females are something spectacular. And I don't mean that in a good way. They are more vicious than white men. And these black men, y'all better learn it. But you don't learn it until you learn it. But they are just brutal and vicious. When you have a white female juror, I do believe it was a white female jury, question why he was out taking a walk at 7 o'clock to go to the store like he did something wrong. So when you have judicial impacts like this, racial controversies, and then 63% of the people, more than less likely that's going to be on that jury, is going to be white. If not 100%, because there's a jury selection process where you can be weeded out. And you're not even given a voice on this jury. And if you are given a voice on the jury, you're probably going to be 1 or 2 black people in a room of 10 other whites that are going to probably do through coercion, if not duress, convince you or sway you to vote not guilty or to vote in a manner, or guilty, depending upon the trial, to vote, or should I just say to vote in a manner that you probably don't want to vote in. And you heard that through the Trayvon Martin trial. You heard that through plenty of trials where after the fact, people say, well, I had a change of heart. You seriously? I know what happened. You got in a room for 12 other people and somebody, either it was the foreman or whomever, people pressured you to buckle because race is a sensitive thing to talk about with one another. And it's the same with this George Zimmerman thing. So I'm talking from a judicial perspective. It's hard to get justice when you are 12% of the population and they can stack a jury of 12 white people on a jury for George Zimmerman, or even 11 white people and one black, it's going to be hard because all they need is one not guilty to get a non-conviction. And again, the man was found not guilty. That's not to say that I have to agree with it. Just like people don't agree with the OJ trial. I tend to agree with the OJ trial. Hey, look, they found him not guilty. People don't want to give OJ his respect. People still walk around, yeah, he did it. And that's their right to say that. And it's my right to say that George Zimmerman killed somebody and got away with it. That's my personal opinion. But other judicial impacts are the same thing that you see going on in this country that's been going on. There's nothing new here. When you talk about this, all of this police brutality, there's nothing new there. I mean, hey, I was born in the 70s. I used to listen to Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor had a comedy special. He used to talk about the police chokehold. Yeah, that police chokehold they put on us. You know, of course, he used the N-word because that was his favorite word. But he's been, you know, they talk about it so much they made jokes about it. It became a norm. Black people normalized getting murdered by the cops. That's pretty sad. Normalized it through comedy. Pretty sad. Rodney King gets his ass whooped on national television by 55,000 cops. It looked like they was having a party whooping his ass. Looked like he was a human pinata. And his face looked horrible. He's lucky to have his life when he had it. And he sparked a riot. He sparked the riot of all riots. Well, George Floyd seems to be working on that one, but and God, nothing against George Floyd. Sorry that you're gone, but I'm just trying to paint a pattern here. You have a bunch of officers whooping somebody's ass, and you have a bunch of white people that get stacked on the judicial system, and these court cases somehow seem to get moved to all white counties, not in all instances, but in one instance, I forget what one it was. I want to say it was the Rodney King one, where they moved it from one county to, I think, Orange County, to a nearby county that was predominantly white, because they said that the officers couldn't get justice in that, based upon the jurors that were going to come out of that county. Are you for real? Are you serious? So they move it. And so, see, this is what I'm trying to say about your numbers. When you don't have the numbers and you don't have the economic power, you cannot do anything. You're going to continue to have Rodney King, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Philando Castillo, and George Floyd, Trayvon Martin. You're going to continue to have this. So your numbers are important. Like I said, you're looking at South Africa, America. You're looking at the whole blacks in the diaspora. As far as you're going to be fit in one or two situations. You're either going to be in Africa and have the population count numbers, the quantitative numbers that outnumber white people, but you're not going to have the financial power to do anything about it. Or you're going to be in the Americas and in the Western world, where you're going to be in both bad positions, where you're not going to have the numbers as far as population wise to overpower or overcome or sway whites. And you definitely aren't going to have the financial power to do so. So know your numbers. So when you start going out here, and I hear the most ignorant thing I hear black people say, this is one of the most ignorant things I hear black people say. Anytime an election occurs, and Barack Obama, you're one of them, you make ignorant comments out your mouth. When you start hearing black people blame other black people for election losses. Yeah, black people didn't come out to vote. That's why we lost. Hell, you can have 100% black turnout. Mind you, again, look at these numbers. These are 2010 numbers. 37,685,000. That's your total population count. Let's just say we don't know how many black men are in prison. I don't know. I don't have those counts. I haven't pulled those numbers up. So I'm right now, I'm just freestyling. I'm just talking to you. So 37,685 minus However, black men are in prison and have lost their right to vote. So that number is now probably down to, let's just say 30,000 or 35,000. I don't know how many of us are locked up. I don't keep track of that shit. Excuse my language, but I just don't. So we're down to 35 million. And now let's just say how many of us are 18 and older? That could just be half the population. So that 35,000, you might as well say is now down to what? 17 million, 17,500,000 of us probably can vote. Now let's look at the white number. It's 196 million of them. They only need 10% of white people to show up and vote, which is 19.6 to outnumber you. That's it. That is it. So I get tired of hearing black people say stupid stuff out their mouth about, in Barack, like I said, you're one of them because you've made that ignorant comment. Yeah, getting black people out to vote is great, but you need more than just that. So you can't, let's stop. We always sometimes use a self-defeatist thing. If things go right, we give the white man credit. The white man helped save us. The white man saved us. We don't give any credit to ourselves. Then when things go wrong, we start blaming ourselves. Man, the reason why, because you Negro. And then it becomes a black defeatist problem. You have to look at the numbers. The numbers just don't lie. 37 million will never trump 196 million. Not on a horrible day. And that's not even taking into account that 37 million. Half of these people may have different viewpoints. Some of these people may be conservative. Some of these people may be liberal. Some of these people may not believe in voting at all, which is their right to do so, because not voting is a form of voting. So, hey, your numbers are jacked up. You're playing a game that you can't win at. The only game you can possibly win at is over in South Africa and over in East Africa and North Africa and West Africa, where your population's numbers are 80% or higher. The only thing that you're lacking now is financial strength, financial power. That's the only thing that they're lacking. They have the numbers. And the only thing they need to do is implement legislation, which I think some countries tried to do, in order to get that economic power. And the rest of the world's getting mad at Africa for trying to correct apartheid. And that's the only way that you're going to correct apartheid is through taking away some things from some people who inherited it from the sins of their father. And I'm going to definitely do a post on the sins of the father, because you can't just allow people to hold on to something that their ancestors didn't get legally. At some point in time, you're going to have to correct a wrong. And the only way that you can correct that wrong is to start through some reparations and through some form of legislation that's going to give black people their own companies, that's going to give them power, economic power, to rival whites and or other ethnic groups. So that's my post on knowing your numbers, because numbers do lie. They are very misleading if you don't take the full context of the numbers that are given to you. So please stick around and check out my other posts, and definitely support me. And I'm going to continue to try and provide you with the best information that I can.